Hello, my name is Anniken and welcome to another blocking video. You can find more blocking videos and more information about me at www.YarnAddict.co.uk. All the links will be below this video as well. So today I'm going to block this shawl, which by the time this video is released will have been published in Knitting Magazine. So I have knitted it, I have woven in all the ends, and then I soaked it in lukewarm water for about 10 minutes. Then I rolled it up into a towel, squeezed that excess water, and now I'm going to block it. So on my table I have my blocking mats. I use, these are from Knit Pro. Just going to do one more blocking mat over here. So I'm going to use blocking mats, I'm going to use blocking wires, these are also from Knit Pro, and I'm going to use blocking pins. These are from Knit Pro as well. So I'm going to tilt the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. This shawl was knitted sideways into a kind of crescent-y triangular shape. So the first thing I'm going to do is to put wires in along the top edge. So it does have eyelets along the top edge. I find it much easier to block a straight edge if I put eyelets into it. The top edge is going to be straight, up and down every other eyelet. That's what I find works best. So I just skip on, go into the second one, under, over, under. So just every other eyelet. If you don't have eyelets along the edge, then you just put it through the edge of the fabric, but don't get too close to the edge of the fabric. You want to go a little bit, a couple of stitches in probably. I just want to make sure I don't run out of blocking wire. I am blocking this on my dining room table, which is where I tend to block most things. Depending on the space you have available, you can block things on the floor. You don't need blocking mats, but you need something that you can stick pins into. So I use blocking mats to protect my table. Okay, so I've gone along this top edge now, and then I'm just going to pull that over to the edge of the blocking mat. I usually do find that the shawls that I block are bigger than my table, so which I think will be the case here as well. So I'll show you how I deal with that later on. So then I'm going to carry on putting a second wire through. Probably need 3 wires along this top edge. If you don't have blocking wires, you can just use pins, but you would need to put the pins quite close together so you don't get scallops along the top edge when you stretch the shawl out. So I do recommend blocking wires. They're a little bit pricey. You might be able to pick up second-hand ones. Ask around if anyone has any that you can borrow. But if you do a lot of knitting, especially lace knitting, they are a worthwhile investment. So that's the second wire in, and then I'm not going to put the third wire in yet because I'm running out of space over on this side. So I'm now going to start putting a wire in along here. The shawl is kind of diagonally down and then flat and then back again. So I'm going to put a wire in here. There's no points or anything. A lot of shawls have like kind of scallops or pointy edgings. There's nothing like that here, so the edging is just going to be a smooth line. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I have a yarn over about 2 stitches in from the edge. So I'm just doing the same thing here. So I did along the top edge. I'm just putting the wire in, up and down, in and out of every other eyelet. You may notice that I have stitch markers, removable stitch markers. I put one in after every pattern repeat on the lace, just because it's quite a big pattern repeat and it would just make it easier for me to count how many repeats I've done at the end. There we go. Now I'm going to start pinning this out. I'm actually going to use my knit blockers from Knit Pro. If you don't have blocking wires, the knit blockers are a good alternative because you can put these in right next to each other without any gaps, and it's a little bit easier than putting pins in. I'm going to pull this right up against the edge of the blocking mat because that will make it easier to make sure the top edge is straight. So I'm going to do the first one over there. And these, because I got blocking wires, I don't need to put these knit blockers in right next to each other. If you don't have blocking wires, then you do need to do that. And I managed to pull quite a bit of the wire out. So I'm just going to thread this through again. These are the sort of things that happen. Put that wire back in again. You can also just put pins along here if you don't have blocking knit blockers. You can just put pins along here. That's what I used to do, but I find using my knit blockers easier now. Okay. So I've stretched that as far as I can at the moment, and then I'm going to stretch this section out so that I can move the whole setup further along to block out this side of the shawl. It is best if you can put the wires into the whole shawl first and then stretch it out, but that doesn't always work. You have to allow for the space you have as well. So I'm going to use these now, I think. So I'm just going to stretch this. Now I don't want to stretch it too much on this side because I've got to make sure I can stretch it the same amount all the way around. So I'm not going to stretch this as much as I think I will be able to, but I'm stretching in a reasonable amount. So it has garter stitch here, and then the lace gets gradually wider and flattens out at the bottom. The garter stitch section kind of, the increases for the garter stitch section, it was increased along here. Those increases stop before the increases for the lace section stop. So at the start you have increases in the garter stitch section and along the lace section. And the increases for the garter stitch stop by here, but the lace carries on. Okay. So I've stretched this out a fair amount. I might be able to stretch it a little bit more, but we'll see a bit later on. So then I'm going to put this wire in along the bottom here. And you don't need to, if you're just going in and out of yarn overs like this, you don't need to overlap the blocking wires at all. So I'm just going in and out again of these eyelets, every other eyelet. What I wish I had done was put a marker here when I stopped the increases. I think it probably is about here, so I'm going to leave that one there. And then I'm going to slide this whole blocking mat over, and I have a chair at the edge of my table. This is one of my dining room chairs, and I've just slid the blocking mats onto the dining room chair for support. So let's carry on with the blocking wire up at the top here. Apologies if this is a little bit to the edge of the camera. There's only a short section I need to do here. That is it. Let's see if I've got enough. Yes, my blocking mat is long enough. So I'm just going to stretch this out as far as I can and put the first knit blocker in the corner there, and then I can just insert them into the rest of these. So I don't tend to stretch it too much along the top edge because I want to be able to stretch it that way. You will find that if you stretch it more one way, you can't stretch it as much the other way. So the top edge, I don't tend to stretch it as much. I just tend to smooth it out so that I can stretch the shawl quite a bit that way as well. So that's the top edge pinned out. So now I'm going to start putting this in, and because I like to put the wire in from right to left, I don't like starting up here. I'll start in the middle here and then go up towards the top edge because I find that a lot easier. Okay, there we go. So I'm right up at the edge there, and then I'm going to stretch that out. Get another wire and put it in this section here. So this is the section at the bottom which is straight. So I'm not going to put a wire in there at the moment. At the end of the video, I'll give you a close-up of the whole setup here. So now I'm going to stretch this top bit out like I did on the other side. Again, I'm not stretching it as much as I think I will be able to, because what I'll do in a minute is that I'll just go across and double check the measurements everywhere and make sure that it's all stretched the same amount. Okay, so I got this short section at the bottom here which is straight. So instead of using a blocking wire there, I'm actually just going to use the nip blockers. So because it's just this short section here, I'm just going to use these nip blockers along the edge. So I just put these through the edge and then pull it. And I managed to get all the way to the edge of the blocking mat on that side, which is great. One more nip blocker. There we go. So I'm just going to go along here now and stretch it as much as I can. And then I'll measure and make sure I've stretched each side the same amount. At the moment I'm just stretching this edge as much as I possibly can. I like to stretch my lace shawls as much as I can. So I stretch them and then I see if I can stretch them a little bit more. So it kind of curves around, even though this is a straight edge, it does kind of curve around slightly. So I'm going to just measure. Let me just see, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to measure where this marker is here. I'm going to measure that from the edge to the center is roughly there, just to get a rough idea. Okay. Quite often I will just kind of eyeball it to see if I've stretched it an equal amount on both sides. Sometimes I like to measure. If it's going in a magazine, I'm more likely to measure it. If it's a self-published design, I'm more likely to just eyeball it. Because I don't think a tiny difference, if this bit is stretched slightly less than the equivalent lace on the other side, I don't think that's going to make it show up in the photographs. But when stuff's going in magazines or to yarn companies, I like to make sure it's 100% perfect. I'm just going to take, sorry if you can't see this, I'm just taking one of the nip blockers off at the bottom because it caught in the blocking wire. Okay, so stretch this out as much as I can, and it started lifting a little bit over here, but not too much, so I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to do some measurements. I'm just going to check. I'm trying to find the center here. Again, it would have, at the top here, again, it would have been an idea if I put a marker in, but I didn't. So I'm going to try and eyeball where the center is and then measure from the center out to certain points just to make sure that everything is straight. I'll take the camera off and show you a view of the whole shawl before I do that. So you can see it's kind of lifting a little bit here. So I'm just going to put these pins in again in a minute just to flatten this down a bit. If you find that it's starting to lift on one side, so you've stretched it too much somewhere, you just need to release it slightly. But that is a view of the whole shawl. So if you have any questions, just ask below this video, and thank you very much for watching, and you'll find all the links below this video as well.